Heartbreaking news today about former talk show host Wendy Williams. New court documents filed by her legal guardian say she is now permanently incapacitated by her ongoing health battles.
Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. In a shocking twist no one saw coming, Wendy Williams, the queen of hot topics, the one they tried to silence, has now taken the stand in federal court. After decades of rumors, suspicions, and relentless industry backlash, Wendy is finally putting it all on record. Her testimony isn't just about Diddy, it's about a pattern of protection, silence, and systemic abuse in hip-hop and entertainment. From Jay-Z to R. Kelly, from radio blackballing to NDAs, Wendy came armed with dates, quotes, and chilling recollections. This wasn't a tabloid segment. This was a bombshell deposition under oath with everyone listening. What she said about Diddy, Jay-Z, and their twisted connection, it could tear down an entire industry. Buckle up, because Wendy Williams just turned the courtroom into her purple chair. When Wendy Williams entered the courtroom, it didn't feel like a celebrity appearance. It felt like the arrival of someone who had been buried alive and clawed her way out just to finally tell the truth. She wasn't here for headlines. She wasn't here for drama. She was here because for years, the media tried to silence her with lawsuits, threats, blackballing, and mockery. And now all those warnings, all those rumors she put out on her old radio show were part of a federal investigation. She sat down, looked directly at the jury, and adjusted her microphone with a calm but deliberate voice. I was never messy. I was never bitter. I was never lying. I was early. Wendy wasted no time reminding the court why she was there: to testify under oath about the behaviors, threats, cover-ups, and patterns she had long accused Sean Diddy Combs of orchestrating. When I first started talking about Diddy, I wasn't trying to tear him down. I was trying to wake people up. The courtroom watched as she placed a stack of papers in front of her, printouts of old show transcripts, emails from executives, and a timeline of everything Diddy allegedly did to shut her down. She started in the early 2000s. He was protected. Everybody knew it. We couldn't talk about Puff without a phone call coming in an hour later. To detailed moments where station managers warned her, advertisers pulled out of her show, and threats were made in subtle but unmistakable ways. Doing too much, Wendy. To say, you're going to get hurt, Wendy. To describe being chased, quite literally, out of her radio station by a girl group, allegedly sent by Diddy himself. Total. I said they were broke, and within hours, they were waiting for me outside my building. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Wendy described her career like it was a war zone. Exposed something about Diddy, from his parties to the way he treated his artists. Something in my world would collapse. A sponsor, a syndication deal, a network invite gone. But she refused to back down. You can blackball me, can threaten me, but you can't erase me. And now I'm under oath. So I hope they're listening, because I'm not stopping until the truth is loud enough to shut their machine down. When the prosecution asked Wendy about the culture surrounding Diddy, she pivoted towards someone else she had long warned the public about: Jay-Z, and her tone sharpened. You can't talk about what Diddy did without talking about the people who stood next to him, smiled with him while the abuse was happening. That includes Jay-Z. Wendy's eyes scanned the jury before she leaned in. Y'all remember Foxy Brown? She was 15. Jay-Z was 27, and he was everywhere with her. She pulled out lyrics from Foxy's debut album, songs Jay-Z reportedly wrote Ain't no nump like the one I got. No one can me better. To read aloud deliberately. Courtroom recoiled. You tell me, she continued. Why was a grown man writing those lyrics for a child? She continued with details only someone from the industry could know. Rumors of Jay picking Foxy up from high school lavish gifts, shopping sprees, and hair appointments, funded by a man almost twice her age. This wasn't a label signing. This was grooming. Then Wendy dropped something even darker, an alleged tape. There was a rumor for years that a tape existed. Jay-Z, Foxy, and Jamie Foxx. You never heard about it again. But because suddenly Foxy's home was burglarized. The tape gone. She let the words hang in. There. Coincidence? I think not. Wendy said she was fired from her top-rated radio show shortly after suggesting that Jay-Z's relationships with underage girls needed to be investigated. Called me toxic, but now you're seeing that everything I asked was worth asking. The prosecution then asked if she had any concrete evidence. Wendy nodded. Email call log producers who backed out of my show when I brought up Jay's name. She told the court that Jay-Z's team made quiet calls to industry insiders to blacklist anyone who spoke about Foxy. That turned me into the villain, she said, just for asking what any decent person should have asked. Then she turned to the jury. You think I lost sponsors for being messy? Number I lost sponsors because I was right and they couldn't let that. But next came what Wendy called the part nobody wanted to believe. The part that had her labeled as a liar, loudmouth, and worse. So the court, I was the first to say it. But weren't parties. They were operations. She was referring to the infamous freak-offs, a term now central to the federal indictment against Diddy. Wendy said she first heard whispers about these events in the late 90s when Bad Boy was at its peak. Phones were taken at the door. Guests signed NDAs. There were candle escorts, cameras. People were assigned to rooms. This wasn't a house party. It was a ritual. Referenced Karen Superhead Steffens told Wendy on air that Diddy invited her to one of these parties and asked for male involvement. Superhead didn't lie. She described everything. Diddy's paranoia, his drugs, the strange setups. She said he was afraid she'd expose him. Wendy leaned in again and I made sure people heard that interview. I played it again and again because the truth was too heavy to let it pass. She described similar stories she'd heard from other guests, men and women who had been to Diddy's parties and came back shaken. They didn't just party. They were told what to do, what to wear, who to touch, what room to go in. Wendy testified that she had personally spoken with 3 individuals who described 4 bags being used to recover from the party, just as the court indictment now details. Said there were medical assistants on standby. This was not socializing. This was organized depravity. She produced a list, pseudonyms only, of people who'd given her their testimonies in private. The court was stunned. One by one these events matched the very patterns described by Cassie Ventura, Gone Deal, and other witnesses in the case. Finally, Wendy said something that hit everyone hard. The baby oil. I said it on air as a joke, but it wasn't funny. They really found over 1,000 bottles just like I said. You know why because people told me and I was the only one willing to say it. She sat back in the chair, composed and looked over at Diddy. All these years later, and we're finally here. Now it's not gossip, it's evidence. As the courtroom grew more silent, Wendy Williams shifted focus to someone else she had been defending for years. Cassie Ventura said it back then. She declared eyes never leaving the jury. Y'all were mesmerized by the diamonds, the music, videos, the red carpets, but I saw it. Scared girl. I saw imbalance and I said it on the air. Something about that relationship was off. Wendy testified that she had tried to warn her listeners as early as 2008 about the obsessive control Diddy allegedly had over Cassie. She was 19. He was pushing 40. That's not love. That's leverage. Wendy explained how the mogul's lifestyle, jets, private security, industry pull, made it nearly impossible for Cassie to. I said it then and I'll say it. She didn't need a boyfriend. Needed a bodyguard. She reminded the Courtroom of a clip she played on her show years ago where Cassie looked down during an interview and flinched when Diddy raised his voice. People called it nerves. I called it trauma, but nobody listened. The prosecution then entered into evidence a timeline of Wendy's broadcasts that paralleled Cassie's legal claims. I was told Diddy had access to her phones, that he'd show up at hotels unannounced, that he'd get staff to unlock her doors. She paused. And when I said that out loud, my show sponsors pulled the plug. Wendy then referenced a 2018 incident, the one where Cassie reportedly ended the relationship after Diddy allegedly forced his way into her home. That's not the first time he showed up uninvited. Wendy testified, people don't understand. When a mogul wants control, they don't need permission. The world rearrange itself for them. She gave the court a chilling breakdown of how these mogul dynamics play out. Grooming, isolating, leveraging industry, influence and forcing the illusion of luxury as a means of obedience. It didn't just love Cassie, he owned her. And when she broke the chain, she became dangerous. Wendy ended this part of her testimony by saying, everything in that lawsuit, I saw the sign. I said it publicly, and now she's finally being heard, but at what cost? Wendy adjusted her mic again. Her voice didn't tremble, but it slowed. You don't get to talk about men like Diddy and walk away clean. I knew that, but I didn't realize how deep it would go until it happened. She testified that in 2004, at the peak of her radio dominance, she received a message from a record label executive. Stop talking about Puff or else. Wendy didn't flinch. She kept going. The very next week, she was pulled from her afternoon time slot. They didn't even pretend it wasn't about him. She said it was punishment. Wendy revealed she'd heard from multiple sources that Diddy had made phone calls, strategic ones. She said, to label heads, promoters, and radio networks, warning them to distance themselves from Wendy. She recalled one program director telling her bluntly, you went too far. You poked the wrong bear. She spoke about how she was almost attacked in front of her own studio by the girl group Total after she called them washed up and broke on air. And you think they just showed up randomly? Number they were sent. Wendy recounted the moment in vivid detail. Fans pressed to the glass of the radio station lobby. Her boyfriend at the time